Hey teacher friends, I hope you enjoyed the module so far. At this point in the module, you should have been able to create an account and hopefully familiarize yourself with a little bit about Nearpod, and then hopefully have seen some of the great things that it offers teachers. All right, so here we are on the Nearpod website. So I went to Nearpod, I signed in with my teacher account, and I've used Nearpod a couple of times, and these are the lessons that I have either added or have taught in my class. So this is the dashboard, and then along the left-hand side, looking at the screen, you have some menu options. So what we're looking at today is how to search for lessons that you can use in your class, instead of creating them from scratch right off the bat. So to do that, we're going to click Nearpod Library, which brings up a lot of lessons, and then we can filter that if we want to drill down to a lesson that we're looking for specifically. So there's options across the top: grades, subjects, content types, and publishers. And then you also have filter by standard. But let's say for this scenario, I want to be using a perspective of a 6th grade math teacher. So I'm going to click grade. I could click 6th grade. That's going to bring up all the Nearpod lessons that are relevant for 6th grade. And then you could browse this way, or you could filter more. So let's say I'm 6th grade math. This is going to bring up any lesson that's 6th grade math. And you can look across the top and it'll tell you how many lessons and activities and videos there are. So this is a good way to browse if you're just looking for resources. But let's say that I have a specific standard that I want to teach. So I'm going to go over here to the right and click Filter by Standard. That brings up a few options. So I can click the state that I'm in or the type of standard. I'm in Georgia, so I'm going to click Georgia. I'm going to click Math for subject, and I'm going to click 6th grade. So that brings us to the 6th grade math lessons for the state of Georgia. And now I'm going to click a strand or an actual standard. So let's just say 6th grade numerical reasoning 1.2. All right, so this brings up all of the resources that are relevant for that particular standard. If I only want a lesson, I can click lesson at the top. And again, that's just going to bring up those that have full lessons built in. So for this example, let's say I'm looking at dividing fractions and I want to preview it. So I can click preview, then you can click through all of the slides. So once that loads, you can go one at a time, or you can go down to the bottom and just skip ahead or skip around to different slides. So the great thing about Nearpod is there are a lot of interactive tools built in that you can add to your lessons. So if you don't like something, but you like the lesson, then we can customize it, right? So let's say that I like this lesson and I want to use it. I'm going to click Add to my lesson. And then I can edit it right away. Or if I go back to my lessons over here, I will see that it's been added to the lessons that I want to teach. But we're going to go ahead and edit. So once you click edit, you have a lot of options that you can use. So on the left-hand side are the slides. On the left-hand side are the slides. You can add text, you can change the layout. There's a lot of different tools. You can change the design or the theme. But let's say that I looked through the slides and I didn't want the poll in there, right? So I click on the poll and I just don't want that in there right there. Or maybe I want to move it to a different spot. So there's 3 dots on the slide that you can click. And you can either delete it, or if I wanted to move it to a different location, you can just drag it to the spot that you want it in. So let's say I'm moving it around, still don't like it, so I'm just going to delete that. It asks if you want to. I'll click delete. So now that poll is no longer there. But let's say instead of that poll, I wanted to add something new, and a new interactive tool, a new slide, a new video. So up at the top, we'll click add new, and then it gives you options. So you can create a slide, you can put in a PDF or an image. But let's say that I want to put in a discussion slide. So I'm going to click discussion. And maybe instead of that poll, I wanted an open-ended question. So I'm going to add the open-ended question. And then I can type in anything I want. So we'll say, what have you learned so far? And then this is something in the lesson that will prompt the students that could spark a discussion. If you wanted to, you could add additional images or audio. You could have music playing while the students think. But now that slide is there. And then you can go around and you can either add additional things, take away. It's totally customizable, which is great about Nearpod. All right, so let's say that I've added everything that I want to. Everything's good. I'm going to click Save and Exit. And that brings me back to my dashboard. Here is the lesson that I have edited, and when I'm ready to teach it in class, you just highlight or hover over that lesson and then click Teach. Now here you have two options. If you want to lead the lesson live in class, you'd click Live Participation, or if you want to assign it to students, they can access it, and it can be student-paced, where they would just access it on their own device and then work through the lesson. So let's say I click Live Participation. So this would be a live lesson in class. It would be displayed at the front of the classroom on your interactive board. So you'll see that it brings up this code, and then the students would enter that code to be able to join the lesson. And then you would just go through the lesson. Down at the bottom, you have other options. So you can take a break, you can add an activity while you're working, you can see the participants, you can hide student names and answers. So there's lots of different options there. When you're done, you can click End Session. Are you sure? Yes. And then that lesson would be done. If you wanted to assign it to a student, you would click Student Paste. Again, there is a code there, and then you would send that out via a link or embed it in a lesson or whatever your school uses. And then as the students progress through that, you can view their progress. And then this is a great option down here at the bottom. So you can require student responses and prevent skipping. That means they have to go through each slide. They can't just, click to the end and be done. So those are the two ways that you can offer the lessons. And then another great tool here, once the lesson is done and students have had time to go through, you can click Reports. And then this one doesn't have any, so there's nothing there yet, but if students had joined, you'd be able to see their progress, you'd be able to see how much time they spent on it, and you'd be able to get that data for grading or for feedback or for whatever you needed it for. So that is our lesson about adding a lesson from the Nearpod library and then customizing it. So now it's your turn. Good luck.